welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, here to bring you yet another profound conversation that hopefully helps bridge the gap between complex technologies and real-world applications. And in doing so, increase adoption and solve real-world problems too. And today, I'm looking forward to learning more about XYO, which is an incentive-driven blockchain network of more than 3 million IoT devices that anonymously collects and validates geospatial data, or data with geographic components. And their mission is simply the continued development of the XYO protocol, XYO network, and XYO token to verify and validate the world's geospatial data. So today I've invited the CEO and co-founder of the XYO network to join me on the show though, because founded in 2018, the XYO network has been on a mission to empower individuals by giving them full ownership and control of the data that they generate. So with their geospatial technology, XYO is creating a data-driven infrastructure that is pivotal not just for the metaverse, but also for a more functionable and accessible Web3 ecosystem. And one of their core products, XYO World, is a game-changing platform that allows users to stake real places on a digital map, which are then stored as NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain. So in today's conversation, Arie and I are going to be diving deep into their groundbreaking work, and we'll also discuss their commitment to data ownership, the revolutionary concept of their Geotokens, the challenges and opportunities in the landscape of emerging technologies, and what the future holds, and anything on that product roadmap. Yeah, we can't mention blockchain or crypto without using the word roadmap. It's kind of the law, right? So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the US, where we're going to journey through the intriguing terrains of decentralized technology and digital ownership with our guide, Arie, CEO and co-founder of XYO Network. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Oh yeah, my name is Arie Trouw. I'm the founder of XYO Labs and the co-founder of XYO Network. I create cool solutions for Web3 technologies, and I'm very passionate about data sovereignty, provenance, and permanence.
Well, it's a huge pleasure to have you on the podcast. First of all, for anybody that's hearing about XYO for the very first time, can you just tell me a little bit more about what you guys do, just for any new people that are hearing about you for the first time?
Sure. XYO is a network or a software framework that lets you create dApps or decentralized applications with the benefit of Web3 technology, cryptography, and sovereignty, provenance, and permanence, but with the performance and cost of Web2.
Fantastic. And we will have members from your community listening also. They'll be looking for things like what's happening on the product roadmap. There's a lot of rumors around the anticipated XYO World 4. So can you expand on that and any new features or enhancements users can expect this year, and how all of these ultimately will align with this ongoing evolution of the metaverse and Web3 and so much more? What can we expect?
4.0 is definitely going to be an exciting launch for us. It will be later this year. What we're doing is we're taking XYO 4 and moving the functionality for it onto XYO Network. The original XYO World NFTs, they were all on Ethereum. We'll probably move them to Polygon. That's still to be determined though. And once they're there, the purpose is to be able to use them in XYO Network and provide utility for them there by having functionality which is contained by them, for example. So you can store other NFTs or ERC20s or data in those tokens and then potentially even use them as a basis for a board for a game, for example. So if we want to have, or I should say, I actually have some specific games in mind. I'm a big fan of Mule, for example, from the 1980s. So if we were to make a Mule type game, we can use XYO World as the tiles for where those different activities for a Mule type game goes.
Oh, that takes me back. That goes way back to the early 80s, doesn't it, the Mule game?
Yeah, it's 1983, I believe. It's an electronic arts game. It's personally, I think, one of the best game designs ever. It's fun today. I even have an Atari 800 set up right now that I can play Mule on, a 4-player with my friends.
Yeah, they were a golden time in gaming. I was a big fan of Jeff the Yak Minter and all that stuff back in the day. And There's so much I wanted to explore with you today, and one area in more serious matters is self-sovereignty and digital asset ownership. And XYO's mission focuses on returning people's ownership and control of the data that they create. So can you elaborate on how XYO is achieving this goal, particularly in the context of self-sovereignty and digital asset ownership? And also, how is this shaping user interactions in a digital world? Because it feels like, again, we're entering another golden period here.
Yeah, definitely. One of the primary goals for XYO is to allow people to have a place where they can import and hold their data which they've created or that they own. In many cases, people, they put data in cloud solutions or on different applications with the hope that they'll be there a year from now, 10 years from now. And a great example of this was MySpace. So many people, if you ask them right now, where are all your photos from MySpace? Where's your configurations from MySpace? Where are your messages from MySpace? Well, they're gone because MySpace is pretty much gone. And even before MySpace was gone, they were on version 3 or 4, and they had deleted some data there. So in many cases, people think that they have their data or own their data, and usually they don't even have full access to their own data. So we've been an example application on XYO where you can take the download from Netflix that you can request from them, you can import it into XYO, and you can explore that data there. And also hold that data forever. So that way you can store it on your own archivist and not have to worry about whether or not Netflix is going to make it go away. But more importantly, have access to it so you can use it and analyze it the way you want to. Because in most cases, companies don't want to give you the answers from that data that are not aligned with their business goals or their business needs. So being able to have access to your own data that you should is the first step. Once you have that, finding ways on XYO or different Web3 technologies to maintain sovereignty, provenance, and permanence is very important. And the provenance portion of it, for people who aren't familiar with that term, is really where's the origin from? And I think that's one of the things which are going to be really required soon for AI and for a lot of those things, because you want to know who was the original creator of data and through whose hands it has flowed to get to where it is now. So the data provenance aspect of it is very, very important as well.
And the concept of Geotokens as NFTs central to XYO World will be intriguing for many listening too. So can you just run the listeners through how these Geotokens work, and also how users are able to stake real places and own a real piece of the map, and also any opportunities or challenges that might have arisen from this unique approach that you've took?
So Geotokens, for people who don't know what they are, they're NFTs that represent geohash. A geohash is, depending on the zoom level of the world, it's a breakdown or a square of that world. So at the first level, there's one giant geotoken, which is the entire world. The next level gives you 4, and the next level gives you 4 inside of each one of those. So it gives you 16 and so on and so on. So it kind of gives you smaller little squares that are on there. And so the way the XYO World views that is that each owner of those geotokens has a certain right to be able to affect the gameplay or the rules, or depending on what the application is, they have a certain ability to be able to manage that space there. So, and also you can store NFTs in there. You can store ERC20s or other portions of data in there. It's an NFT that actually has real utility, as opposed to most NFTs, which are just a pretty picture. So the interesting thing is, in those NFTs also, we don't actually have much data. Most NFTs have a lot of metadata that go along with them. Our metadata is all really generated from that geohash. So like the map that you see, the picture for our token is just the picture that's generated for that geohash. It could be light mode, dark mode, street map, or satellite map. It doesn't really matter, because the only truth about the token is the hash itself, which gives you basically a square in the world, which it defines.
And with your expertise in this NFT space, it has been a roller coaster ride over the last few years. So are you able to share any insights into any current market trends that you're seeing, and where you see NFT marketing, where you see the NFT market heading in the near future, and how XYO's work with Geotokens align with, or maybe even diverge from these broader trends too?
I think it's interesting. I'm pretty old now, I'm 53, so I've seen a lot of trends come and go, and almost always the case, whether it's NFTs, ERC20s, whether it was the .com days or it was software before that. What ends up happening is you have a trend where there's this rush, this gold rush to something which is really interesting. And what ends up turning out is a lot of lint gets created when that happens, but there's also, because it's an interesting tool, a lot of real utility comes out eventually, but that lint has to fall off. So we had this happen during the .com days where people were registering names of domains and saying, well, this is the future of pets on the internet, or the future of filling a blank on the internet. And then 90% of those didn't work out, but the Amazons of the world did obviously succeed. ERC20s are doing the same thing. A lot of them have fallen by the wayside because they don't have any utility, or they were just fluff. Same thing happened with NFTs, where NFTs are actually a really cool technology. They really can have pretty phenomenal functionality on there. But at the same time, a lot of fluff was created around them. So that fluff has to kind of fall off from the snowball before you can get to the core of the true value of that. And I see the same thing happening in AI now. I think there's going to be this rush to everything AI. It's like everyone's going to be like fill in the blank. This is the AI of, and then you're going to end up with this giant ball of 90% of fluff, 10% of meat. And we have to wait until that fluff falls off, and then the meat will stay there. So that cycle, I think, just repeats itself over and over and over again in the tech field. And in blockchain with NFTs and with ERC20s, and even for that reason with networks like layer 2s and stuff like that, the cycle just seems to go way faster than most of the cycles before. The .com cycle just took a lot longer to play out, where we're getting almost better at creating the fluff and better at shaking the fluff off.
Completely agree with you there. And something else I find exciting about what you're doing there with the XYO solutions is the mission to enable a more functional and easily accessible Web3 for developers, for businesses, and indeed individuals. So can you expand on how XYO is breaking down barriers and driving adoption for Web3 technologies, and any specific solutions that have been most impactful? Because that adoption seems key to everything right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key things for me is shared ledgers. When shared ledgers came out, me and among other people, we were fascinated by the Bitcoin white paper. It's this really novel idea. It's working really well. It seems to be perfectly suited for shared currency, for example. I think Vitalik's work on a shared computer, basically, in Ethereum is pretty amazing as well. But once that came out, everyone thought that, that's the hammer they have and everything looks like a nail. But in my opinion, shared ledgers are not as broadly useful as people seem to think they are. I think their limitation in performance and cost is way too high. And I don't think those are solvable in their current state for most use cases. Obviously, they're great for the currency and for like check-ins, for example. I think Ethereum will eventually become a trunk where people can check in states to be able to have permanence on those, but it will not become something where, a whole bunch of the internet's running on Ethereum. It just can't do that. And then layer 2s, which are also using shared ledgers, I think will suffer a very similar performance problem. To me, how to get Web3 benefits is to, first of all, factor out shared ledgers. You can have micro shared ledgers where it's shared between a handful of people, so it's way more performant, or even just ledgers that are still blockchains with hashes and signatures, but they're not even shared. But they still have provenance and they still have permanence because they can't be changed or modified. So XYO is really focusing on how to get those benefits of Web3 that are outside of what a shared ledger provides for you, but is still decentralized, but extremely performant because you don't have to have consensus.
And the idea of staking and owning digital real estate within the XYO world is an incredibly cool concept too. And I'd love to find out more about that. So can you expand on how all this integrates with the wider metaverse, and also any potential applications and innovations this could in the future unlock for businesses and individual users alike? Because I feel at the moment there's a lot of people stood on the sidelines trying to work out where they fit, where their business fits, or where they fit as a user. So I'd love to hear more about your thoughts around this.
Well, there are two kinds of metaverses out there. There's really the metaverse, which is like the virtual reality metaverse, where you can create a whole new world, where I think to some degree that's what Zuckerberg likes. He likes the VR format. There's also the AR version of the metaverse, where you have a projection of the real physical reality that we know. And for humans, that's really just the surface of the earth to a large degree. And then you project additional data and metadata onto that. I'm much more of a fan of the latter, where it's a AR metaverse, and because it's an additive format as opposed to a separate format for that data. So XYO World is really a projection and mapping system for that, where you can use that as a way to be able to position things in the metaverse, or a metaverse, should I say, because obviously there could be several different systems that all project to the same origins and locations on Earth. But we just provide an easy way for people to be able to organize their data and be able to assign locations on Earth for it using hashes as opposed to like longitudes and latitudes. Because longitudes and latitudes are a lot more difficult to use in cryptography because they're basically floating point numbers. And so even a slight difference in them is going to change the hash of it and will change the permanence of it. We're using Geotokens or geohashes. You use little squares. And so if you say, well, isn't in this square, even if it moves a little bit this way or that way, you have the margin of error basically adjusted for it depending on what the zoom level is on that geohash. So it's a much better system for positioning things in an AR type metaverse than a longitude or latitude would be.
What also caught my attention is how with the XYO network, you're seeking to improve data validity, certainty, and value. So can you tell me more about how the technology protocol achieves these goals and how it is shaping the data marketplace, and also to bring it all to life? Any real world examples of where this technology has provided real tangible benefits?
Yes, definitely. The way that we store data fundamentally allows us to have provenance of that data now and permanence as well. So, for example, when a person's using Coin, one of our apps, probably our largest user base app, they store all the different location points on there in Coin. And so we can say that, this is the places people have gone and they are unable to change that history. It's basically a permanent history of that. And then we can validate those things through XYO. We can even then use XYO to have multiple different parties to go and process that data into different answers, but then maintain the source of the data that they use to generate those answers. So if 2 or 3 different parties are all asked to generate the same answer, and they all use the same source, if the algorithm is the same, they should come up with the same answer. And if they don't, then it's very easy to go look at the data and say, well, why didn't you come up with the same answer? Is one of them Byzantine or one of them not? So it allows us to have a system where there could be a micro consensus, as I call it, where you ask, say, 5 different parties independently, which you randomly ask for the same answer from the same data. And if 4 of them match, the likelihood of those being correct and the 5th one being Byzantine is extremely high, because since they were random and they didn't know each other, they did not have a chance to collude on there. So it's a way to get data certainty the same way that overall consensus would be able to do, without having to have a large consensus the same way that Ethereum does. So you can provide a lot better data certainty in a system that's decentralized without having to have a central authority or a shared ledger.
And I'm curious, if we were to look into the future, especially around the sustainability and scalability of XYO solutions, how are you ensuring that the ever-expanding digital real estate within the XYO world remains manageable and valuable? And is anything you can share around the maybe strategies to maintain a balanced ecosystem as the platform inevitably grows?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're doing it the way that we are, because we want to use Web 2 as a measuring stick for the performance and the storage for XYO. Web 3, obviously, storage has gotten extraordinarily expensive. If you want to store an image, for example, on Ethereum, it would cost you probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in gas to do it, because every single computer out there, which is going to be a node, which is going to validate that, has to have a copy of your image. XYO allows you to store that image offline and just store the hash, for example, in XYO. And then once those hashes are there, you can roll those up into a secondary hash, which could be stored on Ethereum, for example. So I would argue that in a way, it's a form of compression. And that compression really is very linear as far as the cost and the performance of it goes. So the performance of XYO will always be that of Web 2 plus the cost of hashes and plus the cost of signatures. But that's going to be a constant or a constant big O notation for you out there who are familiar with big O notation, as opposed to a linear or squared big O notation. So the performance of it should be Web 2 performance plus a fixed cost.
Well, I think there'll be so many takeaways from our conversation for people new to XYO to help increase adoption, and equally some nuggets for members of your community to debate over the next few days. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your time and sharing your insights. But I'm going to see if there's something we can do for you now as a little thank you. Now, some of the biggest names in business, VC funding and tech have either been guests or listened to this podcast. So if there was a person you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, who would it be and why? Because he or she might just hear this. It'd be great to see if we can manifest something together. But who would it be?
Well, this probably sounds a little cliche, but I would definitely say Elon Musk, but it's probably for a different reason that most people would say Elon Musk. So obviously I'm really impressed with all the work he's done, the rockets and SpaceX, Tesla. He's done some pretty amazing work. But the reason I want to have lunch with him is because I'm from South Africa as well. And I believe I was born in the same city he was. I think he was born, but I'm about, 2 years older than he is, maybe 18 months older than he is. He moved to Canada as a child. I moved to the United States as a child. So we've had similar paths. I am losing, though. I always kind of joke that I'm at least one comma behind Elon at any point in time, it seems. So I would love to pick his brain as far as what he did differently than me, because we have such similar stories from childhood and parents and moving and that sort of a thing. So yeah, I'm fascinated by his success. And even though I'm older than him, I kind of view him as an example of what I could still accomplish in my life.
Love that. Well, we'll throw that out into the ether. So hopefully we can manifest something together there. And for everyone listening, just wants to find out more information about XYO, whether they're new, whether they're interested in joining your community, finding out more information, where's the best place to start for everything?
Well, definitely go to xyo.network. That's our main website that shows you, or talks about the information. You can go on Twitter and find us on there. We're on Instagram, those sorts of things. We have a couple other sites that are interesting. If you go to explore.xyo.network, you can use that as a tool to explore the blocks that are on the network. And you can also go to node.xyo.network, where you can run a node right in your browser and then be able to participate with the system. Definitely also visit coinapp.co, which is the webpage for our coin app, where you can install that application on your phone and use that to both enjoy coin and be able to make some money off of your own data, but also become a write-only node for our XYO network.
Well, I'll get those links added so anybody listening, wherever they are in the world, can find you nice and easily. And we covered so much in a short amount of time there, from a few little details around XYO's 2023 product roadmap, including XYO World 4.0. I think we'll have to get you back on later in the year to find out more about that, but also how you guys are enabling self-sovereignty and digital asset ownership while also exploring Geotokens, the NFT central to XYO World, and even a few market trends and predictions around NFTs. So more than anything, though, just a big thank you for taking the time to share your insights with not only myself, but everyone listening around the world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neil.
Wow, what a fascinating and enlightening journey through the future of Web3, NFTs and geospatial technology. So a big thank you to Arie, CEO and co-founder of the XYO Network, for putting a language that everyone can understand and shedding light on the complex yet promising landscape of digital asset ownership and data sovereignty. And for me, it's conversations like this that remind us how technology is far from static. It evolves, it adapts, and opens up new doors for both individuals and even entire industries. So for those of you that are eager to learn more, I think we're all going to be keeping a lookout for the anticipated launch of XYO World 4.0. And if the idea of Geotokens and self-sovereign data resonates with you, you won't want to miss what XYO Network has in store in the months ahead. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we discussed today, whether it be cutting through the hype to explore the true value and challenges that these innovations could bring to the table. Whatever it is, please email me, techblogger@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. This podcast's not about me or today's guest. It's about you too. So if you want to come on here and share your story, hey, let's do that too. But that's it for today. So a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.